All right, so let's get started, sis. So we saw a resume online, Rosemary. We think you might be a fit for one of our role. We're looking for a risk analyst. We have tons of issues right now, and one of our challenge has been remediation of those existing issue. So we need someone that can come in, a self-starter that can help us to immediately identify those risks and prioritize them and begin helping us with remediating of those risks. So if you don't mind, can you walk us through your experience and what you've done and why you think you're a fit for this role?
Okay, thank you very much, sir, and thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, I work in. My name is Rosemary, and basically, you want me to tell you what I've done?
Yeah, just
I
go ahead.
am. Excuse me. I work in based on my resume.
Yeah.
Okay, I work as a account payable representative. And
Okay.
what I do basically on a good day, I get to the office on time, gather all my informations, and start
If
processing
you
them.
don't mind, Rosemary, can we just focus on your risk analyst experience? I've seen in your current role, you also did risk analyst role. So let's just focus on the risk analyst side of things. Yeah.
Okay. As a risk analyst, I identify potential risks, threats, and vulnerabilities that are threats to the organization. And by so doing them, I identify those qualitative risks by doing my risk assessment. By identifying those potential risks, I evaluate the impact of those risks. I eliminate the likelihood of those risks. And at the same time, I do a risk metrics for them. Then I do my final documentation to it
Okay.
by registering all those risks associated with it.
Okay. So how do you typically convey the priorities in terms of the risk to your leadership? So you've built a risk register, you have all the risk information, you prioritize them. How do you go ahead and communicate it to your leadership? And how do you push for their buying?
Okay, thank you very much. What I do is I analyze the data,
Yeah.
I process my findings, and I prepare the report. Then I present that report, giving a timeline to it.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So let me ask you. So, you know, one of your findings, your leadership disagrees with, your assessment of the risk. You thought it was a high risk. They thought it was a low risk. How would you navigate and treat that in your organization? You think it's a high risk, your leadership thinks it's a low risk. How would you handle that?
Um, based on my reports and assessment I've given to them, I will need to let the management see that the ones that are critical are top notch and should be addressed immediately.
Okay. So the ones that are critical. So if they if and this is just, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. If your leadership thinks a risk is not critical, how would you convince me as a leader that it's a critical risk? What would be your approach in general? So, yes, I understand. You think it's a critical risk. I disagree with you. I think it's not critical. So, how would you go about, making me come to your side to understand it's critical? So, within our organization, for example, if you have a disagreement, we will go back to our risk matrix and our pre-established ranking of what the risks are typically, and we would align together and say, well, this is the categorization of the risk, and this is the reason, especially the impact potentially on the business. So we have to specifically show the threat landscape so that people can understand this is why it's critical. So it's backed by data typically. So mostly when we go that route in our organization, our leadership tend to agree or disagree with us. Okay, let me ask you another follow up. Walk me through the process you've used in the past to conduct a risk assessment.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The process we've used, like I said initially,
Yeah.
is to identify those risks.
Okay.
When you identify the risks, you check where the vulnerabilities, you identify those risks by checking the assets, the data, the assets, by identifying those hardwares, the softwares, and checking off the assets and the threats, the vulnerabilities coming from them.
Okay.
You you do um excuse me, you do a risk mitigation plan to it.
Okay. Good. All right. Okay.
Then you do a risk continuous monitoring plan. You have a monitoring plan to ensure that such threats that have occurred before
Okay.
will not occur anymore again.
Got it. Got it. So, what about a case where you have third-party security risk and you are asked to enforce security service level agreement in the vendor contract? What's going to be your typical approach? So, this is, a common risk we know, and we want you to enforce this SLA in the vendor's contract. What's going to be your approach to this? Or
Um,
in your opinion, what's a common third-party security risk you've seen out there?
in my
So, for it,
opinion,
yeah.
okay.
Go ahead. What are some that you personally think? Oh man, third party. This is a big risk we've seen. In our space, for example, there are so many regulations we are expected to be in compliance with. We have prepared for our Canadian residents. We have GDPR for our European members. We have in California CCPA for our Californian residents. So,
I got it.
and the tricky thing for us is how do we ensure compliance from our service level, from our third party in general? What would be your take in terms of the big risk you've seen out there for your third party?
And for our third parties to implement access control, like continuous monitoring and every other, e.g., like the
Okay,
vendors are the third party people. You have to implement strict monitoring controls for those people out there.
okay. Do you use any solution to monitor those controls by chance?
Yeah, the EPA.
Not the regulation generally. I mean, do you use any tool to monitor the controls?
Okay, like the SIM tools, the Splunk,
Okay,
Nexus tools, and QR radar tools.
okay. So those are monitoring tools for incidents in general. Okay,
Incidents in general.
all right, got it. Now, do you have any knowledge in using a GRC solution?
No.
Okay, you've never used one, Archer, ServiceNow, OneTrust.
Okay, I have an idea of service now. Raising
Okay,
tickets
got it. Just for the ticket inside.
just for the
Okay,
ticket itself.
okay, got it. Tell me your opinion in terms of supply chain risk. What are some risks you see in supply chain of operation of businesses in general?
Okay, the risks involved in supply chain could be in general business, could be failure for some suppliers to deliver on time.
Okay.
When they are expecting a particular goods coming in, suppliers are not reporting on time, or geographical issues, or could be war.
Mm,
Sometimes there could be war in a particular location, and those things are the risks that might affect delay in supply chain.
got it. Okay.